Hi, this is the Honest Poppy and welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited to be recording this video today following my basic Pilates warm-up. That video was aimed at people who know Pilates, who have done quite a lot of Pilates and are familiar with the exercises and the cues, and with me potentially. This video is going to be aimed at beginners. So those of you who have never done Pilates before and you want to learn how to do it, or you've just started, or you're not familiar really with the names of the exercises and the cues, I'm going to talk you through this very slowly. We're going to go through each exercise individually, explaining why you're doing the exercise, exactly how to do the exercise, and where you could be going wrong, where your body could be compensating. So the things you need to try and avoid when you're doing these exercises. So we're going to start with breathing and we're going to work all the way through. I'm going to link through the Pilates principles with each exercise where it's relevant. If you have any props, please grab them now in terms of blocks that you may use to help with your positioning. If you don't have any, there are alternatives. You can use cushions, you can use your arms, you can use your body. And if you absolutely don't have anything to use, just your mat is fine, okay? These props and blocks are just there to help you get into a better neutral position to start with, or to help you stay in neutral throughout the exercise. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to start with breathing today. Now, for breathing, you can do breathing in any position. There are lots of alternatives. You can do it in sitting, you can do it in lying, you can do it in standing. Obviously, for breathing, what we want to aim to do is oxygenate for a start. We want to open up the rib cage, so really get a lot of air volume in there, but we also want to get all that old air out, okay? Your rib cage placement is really important for your breathing. Your rib cage surrounds your lungs. So what you want to do when you're breathing is really expand into the ribs and then use those muscles to squeeze the air out, okay? Breathing is really important and comes into a lot of your abdominal exercises to help you stabilize and to help you move through into flexion, extension, rotation, etc. So breathing is really important. I like to do a seated moving into flexion for breathing, and these are the reasons why. So I like people to learn how to be able to sit upright in neutral. Now, if you're tight at all, this position is going to be quite uncomfortable and it's going to feel quite grippy, especially around the hip joint. So this is where a block really comes in handy, or a cushion, or an arc barrel if you've got one. Depending on how tight you are, you might need more height, okay? But usually even just having the one block there is really helpful to help you get into that more comfortable neutral sitting position. You're sitting upright. Your pelvis is neutral, your spine is neutral, and the legs are just comfortably placed in front of you. If you're not able to put your legs in this position, it's not the end of the world. You can have them crossed if you prefer. You can have them a bit wider. Do what feels best, but this is where we want to aim to be in neutral for neutral sitting. Also remember that your feet don't have to be flat on the mat. Whenever you're in this flexed knee position, the feet can be wherever you feel comfortable. It really depends on what your ankle range is like, okay? So your start position for breathing into a flexed position is here in upright sitting in neutral. You're going to breathe in to prepare, and then as you breathe out, you're going to roll forward from your neck all the way down your spine into a flexed position. Now, when I talk about a flexed position, I mean bending forwards. Okay, so whatever posture you're in, you're bending forwards, you're moving into flexion. It's really good to be able to move your spine sequentially into flexion from a neutral position and then come back into neutral from that flexed position. So that's why I like to do this as a start. It mobilizes the spine, it teaches you to connect with your body and move segmentally through, and it also opens up your rib cage to expand. And that is the biggest surface area of your lungs at the back. So it's really good for oxygenation as well. So going through your breathing, you're going to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth through pursed lips to create some air pressure into your abdominal cavity, rolling down from your head all the way over your legs, and you're going to stay down in this position. Now be careful that you're not tensing into your shoulders, overworking your neck. You should be nice and relaxed here, so relax your arms, relax your neck, and just stay down in that flexed position while you take this time to focus on your breathing. We're going to direct the breath into the sides of the rib cage to start with. And again, this is a lovely position for this because you feel open, there's space around you,
And you can imagine breathing in towards the sides of the room that you're in. So breathe in and then out. Don't be afraid to make noise when you breathe during Pilates. It's really important to use your breath. So if it's noisy, that's okay. It's Pilates. So breathing into the sides of your rib cage. And then when you breathe out, think about pulling your ribs away from the walls. Try not to breathe into your shoulders, so don't pull your arms up to your ears when you breathe in. Keep everything relaxed, just allowing your rib cage to move freely. Now, I usually do about 3 to 4 breaths in this position, and on the final breath, you're going to breathe in. And as you breathe out, I want you to roll up from the base of your spine all the way up to neutral, finishing with your head. Okay, we're going to go down one more time. So you're going to breathe in to prepare. And then out as you roll forwards again from your head, rolling down your spine and over your legs again. But this time I want you to focus your breath into the back of your rib cage. So you're going to think about your ribs moving towards the wall behind you when you breathe in. And then pulling away when you breathe out. And keep going. Try and lengthen your breath. So try and breathe in for as long as possible and as evenly as possible. And the same when you breathe out. Keep breathing. And I'm just going to keep talking you through the concepts of breathing while you're doing that. I want you to focus on, like I said, lengthening your breath, making it consistent. So the flow of the air coming in through your nose should be the same as the flow of the air coming out through your mouth. So you can change that flow depending on how deeply you breathe and how you position your lips. So breathing in and then. And you can really lengthen your breath when you focus on it. Also, directing your breath into those different parts of your rib cage can be done. It's amazing. The more you practice doing it, the more you'll actually be able to feel that you can breathe into the back of your rib cage, into the front of your rib cage, into the sides, and into your whole rib cage. And all of that will be changing your lung volumes and the way you control your breath. This is really good mindfulness. Okay, so if you struggle with mindfulness, just sitting still and breathing and not thinking about anything, just doing this breathing exercise is already connecting with your body, being present in the moment, and just focusing on what you're doing with your body at that time. Okay, so that's your breathing. Like I said, you can do it in sitting if you'd rather not flex forward or you feel uncomfortable flexing forward. You can just breathe in, bringing your arms up, bringing them down, bringing them to the front. The thing that I want you to remember when you're doing breathing is to keep your spine in neutral if you're staying in this upright position. So when you breathe in, I don't want you to extend your back and open up the rib cage in the front like this. It should be controlled. So we're thinking about expanding the rib cage, not just letting it fly open. So if you bring your arms forward, keep your spine still, and just bring your arms to where you can keep them without your rib cage popping open. Same when you bring your arms up to the side. We don't want to get any flexion or extension in the spine. We just want to focus into the rib cage for breathing. Okay, you can do that in standing, in lying, in sitting, or rolling forward into that flex position, whatever works for you. Okay, going into pelvic floor, transversus, and imprint. Now this is a whole different area of your body, which is really strongly linked to the principles of Pilates. Your pelvis is the center point of your body. So what your pelvis is doing and how stable your pelvis is will dictate a lot of what your spine and your posture looks like. Okay, we're going to be focusing on the pelvic floor to start with, which is a group of core muscles that sit at the bottom of your pelvis. Okay, they essentially hold everything inside you. You want your pelvic floor to be stable, you want it to be able to work, to contract, but you also don't want to overactivate your pelvic floor. Now, there will be more information on this in my pelvic floor video that I plan to do in future, but for now, what you need to know is that you need to be able to switch your pelvic floor on, to contract it, activate it, but also to be able to relax it and switch it off. Okay, I generally work on the pelvic floor in a lying down position just because when people are new to this and trying to find these muscles and connect with them, it really helps to just not have to worry about the rest of your body, to be able to just relax, lie on your back and focus on what you're doing. You can close your eyes while you do this. Nobody can see what you're doing, nobody else can feel what you're doing, so you really need to concentrate on what my cues are saying and do your best to find this muscle. Okay, so you're gonna lie on your back, however you feel comfortable. Again, you can do this in sitting, you can do this in standing, and as you get better at it, that's what we tend to do. We kind of work into different postures for the pelvic floor. But as I mentioned, it is easiest to do this in a lying down position where you are supported and relaxed, but you can choose whatever's best for you. So on your back, focusing on the pelvic floor. Now, if you find it quite uncomfortable to lie on your back like this, you can use a head pad or a small towel and place it underneath your head, but otherwise just directly on the mat is fine. You're going to be in a neutral spine and a neutral pelvis, and again, your legs are going to be slightly bent wherever they feel comfortable for you to be in that neutral spine and pelvis. Now, coming back a few steps, to find a neutral pelvis when you're lying on your back, I don't want you to think about what your back is doing, okay? Everybody's got a different posture, so you may have a gap underneath your lower back, you may not have a gap underneath your lower back, but your pelvis could still be in neutral. So I don't really like to cue the lower back for this one. I like to cue the pelvis. So what you can do to figure out if you're in a neutral pelvis is you need to look at your pubic bone, which is the middle bone of that triangle of your pelvis, and then these two hip bones on top here. And those should be level with each other and level with the ground. So if you were to put a tray on top of your pelvis, it should be nice and level. And if you had a drink on top of that tray, it shouldn't tip over. That's how you know you're in neutral. You can often adjust your legs to help you feel more comfortable in this position. So if your legs are too close, you might find you tend to go back into a posterior tilt, a backwards tilt of the pelvis. If you take them away a bit further, it will feel a little bit more loose and comfortable to be in that neutral. Okay, so this is your neutral spine and pelvis. Arms resting at your sides and just relaxing your rib cage and your shoulders on the mat. To find your pelvic floor, think about where it is to start with. Like I said, it's at the bottom of your pelvis, keeping all your insides in. So the best way, if you have no idea where your pelvic floor is to think of if you really needed to go to the toilet and you had to clench and hold everything in, what would you do? That's very likely your pelvic floor contraction. Okay, and the breath pattern is really important with the pelvic floor. Because your pelvic floor works with your diaphragm, okay, the breath pattern needs to work together. Don't think about sucking your pelvic floor in, okay? It doesn't work with the inhale, it works with the exhale. And again, the simplest way to remember this in future, if you're ever wondering, oh, which one was it, exhale or inhale, is think about coughing or sneezing. If you cough, if you sneeze, that's when you want your pelvic floor to contract and keep everything in. And those are exhales, okay? So we always contract the pelvic floor on an exhale when we're practicing and exercising it in this way, okay? So you're gonna breathe in to prepare, once again, through your nose. And as you breathe out, I want you to think about contracting your pelvic floor as hard as you can, but without anything moving. Okay, remember it's a core muscle, it doesn't create any movement. So you shouldn't be clenching or moving your pelvis. You should just be trying to find that muscle, contract it with nothing else moving. Then when you breathe in, you're gonna relax it completely. When you breathe out, you're gonna contract it. And when you breathe in, you're going to relax it. Now, this is what I would call 100% contraction. So you're contracting it as hard as you can and then letting it go down to 0%, okay? So contracting 100% when you breathe out and relaxing when you breathe in. Keep practicing that, and I just want you to get used to the breath pattern to start with. As you advance, you'll learn to be able to grade the strength of a contraction, but for now we're finding the muscle, we're learning how to switch it on, and we're learning how to use the correct breath pattern. So for now, just contract when you breathe out, relax when you breathe in. Contract when you breathe out, relax when you breathe in. And go at a speed that's comfortable for you to just breathe naturally, okay? You're breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, trying to hold that contraction all the way through your whole exhale, and then relax on the inhale, okay? And that's your pelvic floor. The next muscle we're gonna focus on is your transversus abdominis, okay? Again, this is a core muscle. So when people talk about your core being here, your abdominal core muscle is transversus, okay? Transversus sits around your body like a corset, okay? And it sits underneath all of your other abdominal muscles. Your other abdominal muscles, do have roles in stabilizing, but they are also moving muscles. So they create the movements that you do with your body, okay? Transversus does not create any movement. It's a core muscle. It stabilizes your pelvis, it stabilizes your rib cage, and it stabilizes your lower back. So it's really important to be able to use this muscle. This muscle is also the muscle that will pull everything down and flatten your tummy. Okay, so you may have incredibly strong obliques, incredibly strong rectus abdominis, but if your transversus is not active, you might find you still get that bulge in your tummy when you do all these exercises. That's because transversus is not pulling down and stabilizing everything. So it's a really important muscle to be able to switch on. And again, it can be a little bit abstract if you're not aware of it, you're not able to find it, and you don't know how to activate it. So again, you're going to stay on your back for this one, but to find your transversus, the best place to feel for it is to find your hip bones on top here, okay, at the top of your pelvis. I call these hip bones, they aren't technically hip bones, but for ease of conversation, I call these the hip bones at the top here, okay? And you're going to feel in from those hip bones and find this squashy area here, okay? Your fingers should be able to just squash in there. And then if you try and tighten up that muscle, you'll feel it pushes firm underneath your fingertips, okay? If you're not able to switch it on just like that, there are a few things you can do, but for the sake of you trying to feel what that contraction feels like, you can just cough or sneeze or laugh, and that muscle will just switch on its own. And then you will feel what that contraction feels like, okay? So to activate this muscle, again, it's the same breath pattern. The abdominals pretty much always contract on the exhale. It's a natural wiring of your brain. It's the way our bodies work. We cough, we sneeze, we laugh, abdominals contract, okay? So use your exhale when you're going to be activating abdominals in any way, okay? So to find transversus contraction, you can either think about what you would do if you were trying to slide these two hip bones towards each other. They don't actually move, but imagine what you would do if you were trying to make them pull towards each other. Okay, that's usually a really good cue to activate transversus. It might be a light contraction, but it's a start. And the more you learn to connect with it, the stronger that contraction will get. Okay, so you can either think about that, or you can place your fingers on top here and think about pulling that muscle down away from your fingertips, down towards the mat. Okay, so imagine your fingertips are really hot or really prickly and you're trying to pull away from them. Again, remember, transversus is a core muscle. It doesn't create movement, so you shouldn't be moving when you do this, okay? It's just a tightening up and a release. Tighten up and release. Same breath pattern. Breathe in to prepare. And as you breathe out, you're going to contract transversus, either thinking about sliding the hip bones towards each other, drawing down towards the mat, or tightening up that corset around your waist. You should feel everything tighten up and get smaller, if that makes sense. And then relax on the inhale. You're going to tighten up on the exhale, relax on the inhale, okay? And again, keep going with that breath pattern, just getting used to how it feels to contract on an exhale, relax, contract, relax. You might also feel that your pelvic floor contracts at the same time as transversus. That's great. You want these two muscles to work together. They are pelvic stabilizers. So if they contract together, they work on the same breath pattern, and they're going to be stabilizing your pelvis and your lower back for when you're doing other exercises where you need that stability to protect your lower back. Okay, and that's transversus. The last thing we're going to do with regards to the pelvic placement is called an imprint. Now, an imprint is fairly unique in some types of Pilates. They don't always use it in all types of Pilates, but in Stott Pilates, which is what I'm trained in, we use the imprint. And as a physiotherapist, I believe very strongly in using the imprint. Now, an imprint is used primarily to stabilize your lower back, and it's a really important tool. I use it with pretty much all of my clients, even my intermediates and my advanced clients, because I have not come across anyone yet who is strong enough to do the exercises with the legs in the air and moving all around and maintain stability in their lower back without imprinting. Now, you may find in time that you do feel strong enough and you don't have to imprint, but I insist on it pretty much with any exercise where your legs are going to be up in the air and they're going to be moving around and you need to be using your abs and you need to be strong here, we always imprint first. Okay, so an imprint is a tilting of the pelvis, so tilting backwards of the pelvis. Some people like to say flattening your lower back towards the mat, but again, depending on your posture, your back might not do this. It is the moving of the lower back towards the mat, but not necessarily pressing into the mat. But it is the pelvic tilt where you're only using your abdominals and not your legs. And that is the key to remember. Okay, so if I were to show you a pelvic tilt, a posterior pelvic tilt, so a backwards pelvic tilt, that's what it looks like. Okay, I've moved from neutral into a backwards pelvic tilt. Now, naturally, your body will use your legs and your glutes to do this. Okay, that's just a normal movement. It's the abs, the glutes, and the legs work together. However, the purpose of an imprint is to stabilize your lower back when your legs are going to be up in the air. So there's no use pushing yourself into what you think is an imprint, and then when you bring your legs up off the mat, you drop away because your legs were what was holding you back there. So it's really important that with an imprint, you only use the abdominal muscles, and this requires some strength. Imprinting takes practice. Some people get it immediately, other people take a really long time because they're not used to using the abdominals in this way. So we're going to practice this. If you're finding it very difficult, practice, practice, practice. It is so important. If there's nothing else you take away from learning Pilates, imprinting is the one thing that's really, really important. So what you're going to do is you're going to start in neutral. And again, here's that breath pattern, breathing in to prepare, out as you contract. So you're going to breathe in to prepare. And then as you breathe out, I want you to imagine pulling these hip bones towards your rib cage. Okay, think pulling with the abs, not pushing with the legs, and definitely not tucking with the glutes, okay? Because again, if you're tucking here or you're using your hamstrings, as soon as your legs come up, you will lose your imprint, okay? So it has to come from the abs. So you breathe in to prepare, and as you breathe out, you pull your hip bones towards your rib cage using the abdominals. Keep your feet light on the mat. I like to use the analogy of having your feet on broken glass. How light would your feet be resting on this mat if there was broken glass underneath them? Okay, so really working into the abs and then release back to neutral on the inhale. So we do a lot of imprint release in the warm-up just to get your pelvis mobilizing to start with, but also activating into the abs. So we're going to breathe in to prepare and out as you imprint. In as you release back to neutral again. I've just got my arms up here so that you can see what's happening on the mat, but you can have them resting at your sides, okay? So breathe in to prepare and out as you imprint. In as you release back to neutral. Out as you imprint. And in as you release. Okay, can you see my pelvis is tilting, but I'm just using my abs. And the way you can test that is by bringing in the leg lifts. Okay, so this is the real test. Even though you think you might be doing it correctly, you might still be cheating a little bit with your feet and with your legs and with your glutes. So this is the test. We start with a single lift, and you will already feel a change. If you're not just using your abs, you'll notice that when you bring one leg to tabletop, you suddenly start pushing with the other leg into the mat. Okay, that's your first telltale sign that you might be cheating just a little bit. Okay. So we're holding that imprint. You're going to bring one leg up to tabletop, which is a 90 degree at the hip, 90 degree at the knee. That's the tabletop position, okay? And then bring that leg back down again. We'll switch to the other leg now. In as you lift. So breathing in as you lift, breathing out as you lower. I'm still holding my imprint, okay? My abs are working hard here. You will feel them working, okay? Breathing in as you lift and out as you lower. Nothing is changing at my pelvis or my lower back. It's all staying nice and still. Okay? And you're going to alternate left and right, just getting used to that feel of holding this imprint while your legs start to move and they're not there to support you. Okay? If you need to have a rest before you start again, just let your imprint go, have a little rest with your feet on the mat, and then reset the imprint before we go into the double leg lift. Okay, so this is the double leg lift. This is the real test of the imprint. So you're going to breathe in to prepare. I'll keep my hands up here. Out as you imprint. And then going into the double leg lift, you're going to do one at a time. And again, I insist always one leg at a time coming up, one at a time coming down, even if both legs are going up, because if you drop your legs away or you pull them up, there is a chance that you could pinch a nerve in your back or damage something, okay? So always just do it nice and slowly, nice and carefully. One leg up. Now watch here, nothing happens, nothing moves. My other leg comes up. You might find if you're not strong enough in your imprint, what's gonna happen is you're gonna be imprinted, you're gonna bring one leg up, and then when this one comes up, whoops, you lose that imprint because you were actually pushing with your legs. Okay, so that's what you need to watch for. This needs to stay still while you lift your legs one at a time and lower them one at a time. And again, the breath pattern is in as you lift, so it's a slow inhale as one leg at a time comes up, and a slow exhale as they come down one at a time. In as you lift, and out as you lower. Last one, in as you lift, and out as you lower, and then release back to a neutral pelvis. Okay, and that is your pelvic area in a nutshell, basically. The pelvic floor, the transversus abdominis, both of those are core muscles creating no movement but stabilizing. And then your imprint and release is a pelvic tilt to stabilize your pelvis and your lower back when you're going to be doing abdominal exercises, which will come, to protect your lower back while the legs are up in the air. Okay, we're going to have a short break and then we're going to come back into the next exercise. Welcome back to part 2 of the basic Pilates warm-up for beginners. If you've just completed part 1 and you feel like you need a bit of a break and to take some time to practice the exercises that you've just learned, please pause the video here and come back to part 2 when you're ready. If you'd like to continue through, we're going to go into the second half of the warm-up now, where we're going to complete the remaining part of the exercises that relate to the Pilates principles. We're going to start with hip release. Now, hip release is an exercise where we're focusing on dissociating the hip joint from the pelvis. So what that means is being able to move your hip joint whilst keeping your pelvis still and separate those two parts of your body from each other. You're going to be in a neutral pelvis and you're going to be stabilizing your pelvis in neutral using those core muscles that we've just learned to activate. So you're going to lie on your back for hip release, in a neutral spine and a neutral pelvis. Again, if you use a head pad, you can place it under your head now, or a rolled up towel, whatever makes you feel more comfortable in this neutral position lying on your back. Make sure that your pelvis is in neutral and you're going to be stabilizing with transversus and the pelvic floor. You're going to breathe in to prepare, and as you breathe out, you're going to take your knee out to the side without your pelvis moving, and slide your leg away, roll your leg in, and then bend it back to where you started. The whole time your pelvis is staying still. What's going to want to happen is that when your knee comes out, your pelvis is going to want to rock to the side, or your other leg is going to pull across to help you to stabilize. I don't want that to happen. This leg needs to stay pointing up to the ceiling, and your pelvis needs to stay completely still as you take your leg out to the side, slide away, roll in, and bring it back. The breath pattern really helps. You're going to breathe in to prepare and out as your leg moves away so that you can switch on these core muscles to help you stabilize. So in real time, it's going to look like this. Breathing in to prepare, out as you slide away, and in as you bring your leg back. And bring it back. And one more. And bring it back. The easiest way to remember that breath pattern is to blow your leg away and then suck it back towards you. It helps to create some resistance. So imagine that you're pushing against something or pulling against something to help switch on the stabilizers in this area. So if you imagine that you're pushing your leg out and pushing a heavy box away with your foot, and then roll in and imagine pulling on an elastic band as you bring your leg back towards you. This will really help to switch on the muscles in your hip joint and around your pelvis. After you've done a few repetitions in that direction, you're going to change direction. So you're going to slide your leg forward first, roll your leg out, bend your knee, and then bring it back up to center again. Slide it away, roll it out, bend your knee, and bring it up to center, still keeping your pelvis completely still. So in real time, you're gonna slide away, roll out, bend and up to center. And then bring it back up to neutral. And then you're gonna repeat on the other side. Remember that your feet are only going to move forwards and backwards. So imagine that they're on train tracks. Your foot stays in that same position, just going forwards and backwards. It doesn't come out to the side with your leg. It's just the hip joint that's mobilizing, that ball and socket joint, rotating out, gliding away, rotating in, and coming back again. And that's hip release, okay? We're gonna move on to hip rolls now. Hip rolls is a lovely active stretch of the spine. Okay, so you're going to tuck your feet back a little bit closer towards your bottom, but make sure that your legs stay in neutral parallel here. So that means that your hips, your knees, and your feet are all in line with each other. What often happens with this exercise is people's knees tend to come apart, especially when they roll up, because most people tend to be a bit stronger or a bit tighter around the outer muscles of their hips. Try to focus on keeping your knees in that same position, pointing up to the ceiling, as if you've got a ball or a block between your knees. Another thing to remember with this is if you are using a head pad or you have anything underneath your head, please take it out for this exercise. Otherwise, your neck will be forced into too much flexion. Okay, so just to show you how hip rolls looks, you breathe in to prepare, and then out as you roll yourself up off the mat. You're going to breathe in to stay in a neutral position, and then out as you roll yourself back down to the mat. So what you're doing is you're moving sequentially through your spine through a flexion stretch, so rounding your back, tilting your pelvis, and then finishing up in neutral. When you're in this position, your abdominals are on, active, keeping you stable, and your glutes and your hamstrings are on to hold you up there. Like I said before, don't let your legs come apart or come together when you do this. Keep them in that neutral position. When you come down, you're going to focus on bringing your rib cage down first, curling through your lower back, through your pelvic tilt, and all the way back to neutral again. So start position and finish position is in a neutral spine and pelvis. So you're going to breathe in to prepare, out as you roll up, tilting through your pelvis first, curling your spine as you come up off the mat. You're going to breathe in to stay. Make sure your rib cage is flat on your tummy here, not popping up off your tummy and not overextending into your back. Nice neutral position. Breathe in to stay, and then out as you roll yourself down again, slowly moving through your whole spine, through your lower back, through your pelvic tilt, and back to neutral again. And that's hip rolls. So breathe in to prepare, out as you roll up, in to stay, and out as you roll down and back to neutral again. Okay, we're going to move on to spinal rotation next. So spinal rotation is exactly what it says. You're going to be rotating your spine. However, for spinal rotation, it's important that you're directing that rotation into your thoracic spine around your lower rib cage area. So you're going to lie on your side for this one. It's helpful to have a block for this one. If you don't have a block, use a cushion, a pillow, or a rolled up towel so that you can get that sort of height underneath your head. If you don't have a block, what's going to happen when you lie on your side is that your neck is going to drop down into that position, which is firstly not very comfortable and not very good for your spine either. So you need to have something underneath your head so that when you're lying on your side, your spine is in a nice neutral line in horizontal. You're going to bend your hips and your knees up to 90 degrees as well, so that your back doesn't overextend when you do this exercise. It helps you to stabilize and balance. And more importantly, I want you to lie on your arm for this one, okay? Most people will tend to lie on their side when they do this, which is a comfortable position when you're in bed. But when you're doing an exercise, you don't want your spine sagging down into that horizontal position. You want it to be nice and straight in neutral. So you're gonna lie on your arm, make sure you've got a gap between your shoulder and whatever's underneath your head, and you're gonna reach both arms out in front of you. The rotation is gonna be coming from here my lower back and my pelvis are going to stay completely still. This is what spinal rotation looks like. You're going to breathe in as you reach your arm up to the ceiling and look at your hand the whole way through. You're going to breathe out as you rotate your rib cage around, keeping your shoulder with your body. So don't let your arm drop all the way back here. It should stay in line with your chest so that this whole top part of your body has rotated together as one. You're going to breathe in to stay. Think about expanding into your ribs. Breathe out to stay. Breathe in to stay. And then on your final exhale, you're going to pull yourself all the way around back to where you started. Try and do this actively. Try and use the obliques. Imagine you're pulling on an elastic band, so really switch the abdominals on to pull you around into that neutral position again. So here it is again. You're going to breathe in as you reach up to the ceiling, watching your hand. Out as you rotate. Now, if you try and go too far with your rotation, you'll end up pulling your pelvis round and you'll notice that your knees slide on each other. If your knees have moved, it's because your pelvis has moved, okay? So they need to stay directly on top of each other. Your pelvis needs to stay still and only go as far as your rotation allows. There isn't a huge amount of rotation in your thoracic spine, so it might be a very small movement. Don't expect too much from yourself. You're going to breathe in to stay. Out to stay, in to stay, and then out as you twist yourself back round to where you started again. Okay, we usually repeat that 3 times and then you flip over onto the other side and do the same thing again. So just briefly to show you on this side, getting set up, you're going to have something underneath your head. Make sure you lie directly on your arm so that you're in a neutral spine, neutral pelvis, and you've got a gap underneath your tummy and your rib cage here so that you're not dropping your spine into that side bend, okay? Reaching your arms out in front of you, you're going to breathe in as you reach up to the ceiling, out as you rotate your rib cage around, in to stay, and out to stay, in to stay, and out as you twist yourself back round again. And you can repeat that as many times as you like. It's supposed to be quite a comfortable, quite a nice stretch into the spine. It's a movement that we don't do very often without combining all sorts of other movements. So it should feel really good. You'll also probably notice that one side feels a lot more free than the other side. Again, that's completely neutral. Depending on your dominant hand, you'll probably rotate more towards that side than you do to the other side because of the way you move in your day-to-day life. Completely normal, but that is spinal rotation. Okay, we're going to move on to cat stretch next. Now, you've probably seen cat stretch before. It's quite a popular exercise in a lot of different types of exercise. In Pilates, certainly when I teach Pilates, I like to do cat stretch sequentially. So I like you to learn to move through your spine one part at a time rather than in one big movement. You can move in one big movement, it's a lot easier, but when you move slowly through your spine, you're having a better mind-body connection. So your neutral start position is with your hands directly below your shoulders and your knees directly below your hips. And because you're in a bended hip position, so hip flexion, your back is going to be fairly flat when you're in neutral, when you're on all fours, okay? We're going to start with the pelvis and finish with the head. So you're going to breathe in to prepare. And as you breathe out, you're going to tuck in your bottom first, so tilting your pelvis, round your lower back, moving through your thoracic spine, and then finishing with your head down. You're going to breathe in to stay, and then out as you move into extension, so sticking your bottom out first, arching through your lower back, moving through your thoracic spine, and finishing with your neck. Your finish position should be with your spine following the same curve. So whether you're in extension or flexion, your curve of your spine should be continuous. So don't overextend your neck. It should just follow that curve naturally. You're going to breathe in to stay again. Out as you tuck in and round your spine, drawing your back up to the ceiling. Use your abdominals here. Breathe in to stay and out as you extend. Now, something that could go wrong with extension is a lot of people drop their tummy, so they stop using the abdominals, and they stop using their shoulders and they drop into this position, okay? Because this is quite an easy position to be in. It doesn't take a lot of work to be here, but you're not effectively stretching your spine when you do this. So when you go into extension, I want you to try and keep your abs on, really push into that extension actively, and keep your shoulders switched on the whole way through. So when you finish, you're pushing away from the mat and your shoulders are active, not down here, up here. And you'll really feel the stretch through your thoracic spine more when you do it that way, okay? So breathe in to prepare, out as you tuck in and round your spine, finishing with your head down. Breathe in to stay and out as you extend. Breathe in to stay and out as you tuck in and round your spine. In to stay and out as you extend. Just going to do a few more reps yet. In to stay, out as you tuck in and round your spine into flexion. In to stay and out as you move into extension, keeping the abs on, keeping the shoulders active. And then you're going to bring yourself back to neutral at the end. Okay, that's your cat stretch. We're going to move on to scapular mobilizations now. Your scapula is your shoulder blade, okay? So it needs to move quite a lot. Your shoulder blade only attaches to your skeleton in one small area, bone to bone. The rest of the attachment to your body is soft tissue, so tendons, ligaments, and muscles. So it's really important that we're able to stabilize this bone well with our soft tissue. Your scapula moves with your arm, and your arm moves in a lot of different directions. It needs to be able to move in a lot of different directions, and it needs to be strong. So for it to be strong and for it to work effectively, you need the foundation where your scapula is to be strong and stable as well, but also to be able to move freely. So scapular mobility and scapular stability are really, really important things to have for your arms to function well and to not get issues in your shoulder. Okay, so in general, when it comes to the warm-up, we move the scapula in a few different directions. We do protraction and retraction, which is moving the shoulder blades away from your spine and towards your spine, and I will demonstrate this in a minute. We do elevation and depression, which is moving up and down. And then we do rotation as well, because your scapula rotates as your arm moves around in these sorts of movements. Okay, so have a quick look at my shoulder blades, and I'm going to show you the different movements. So for protraction and retraction, protraction is where I push my arms forward and my shoulder blades move away from my spine. Retraction is when I pull them back and they come towards my spine. Now there is a difference between scapular protraction and retraction and shoulder retraction. Okay, shoulder retraction, we're going to work quite hard and go all the way back here into full retraction. For scapular retraction, it's quite a small movement because we're using slightly different muscle groups, okay? Remember, we want to work into the stabilizers when we're doing the scapular movements. So protraction and retraction is quite a small movement of the shoulder blades away from the spine and towards the spine, okay? Elevation and depression is bringing the shoulder blades up and down, and this is quite an easy movement for most people because most of us can shrug our shoulders and drop them down without any issues, okay? The rotation of the scapula is going to come in when I do arm circles, okay? This is where my scapula is going to swing round and glide on my back as my arms move around. When we do scapular rotation and we do arm circles, it's important that we don't start moving too much through the spine. So you want to have a nice stable spine whilst you just rotate your arms around without anything else moving. And we're going to do this in both directions. Okay, so you're going to lie on your back for your arm circles and elevation and depression. And then we're going to change positions for protraction and retraction. You can do these movements, these scapular mobilization and stabilization movements in any position, but I like to do them in particular positions because it's easier for you as a beginner to feel what you should be feeling, and you get feedback from that as well. So lying on your back in a neutral spine, neutral pelvis, you're going to reach your arms up to the ceiling, palms facing each other. and you're going to be stabilizing your rib cage and your thoracic spine using your abdominals. So hold your rib cage flat on your tummy. We're going to be taking the arms overhead, and I want this to be your overhead position. Everybody's shoulders can move in a different way, so depending on your available range in your shoulder, if you try to go too far overhead, your rib cage is going to pop up and your spine is going to extend. Okay, so you need to find the position where you can go to a diagonal overhead, where you can still keep that stability here, so that we're only mobilizing the shoulder joint when we do arm circles. So you're going to breathe in to prepare, out as you take your arms overhead, and then round to your hips. And then you're going to breathe in as they come up through the middle again. Out as you go overhead and round to your hips, and in as you come up through the middle. Think about stretching your arms away from your body rather than trying to do too big a circle. You're mobilizing this joint, but you're also switching on all the muscles in your arm and your shoulder to stretch them out and activate them. Okay, when you get to your hips, we're going to change directions. You're going to stop and take a breath in. And then as you breathe out, you're going to circle round the sides and up the back again, just through that range where you can keep your rib cage stabilized, and then bring them down to your sides again. Going round and up the back and down the middle. And one more, going all the way around, and then coming down to rest your arms at your sides on the mat for elevation and depression. So try and keep your whole arm in contact with the mat here. This is going to help you to keep your chest wide so that your pecs don't overwork. What often happens is when people depress their shoulder blades, so you're going to bring them up for elevation, and then when they depress, they kind of pull round and round their chest. We don't want that to happen. So you're going to keep your whole arm in contact with the mat, sliding your arms along the mat as you do this movement. So breathe in as you bring your shoulders up towards your ears, and then out as you stretch your hands down to your feet. In as you bring your shoulders to your ears, and out as you stretch away. In and out. 3 and 2 and 1. And then relax your shoulders. And that's your elevation and depression, so lifting the shoulder blades up and down your back. We're going to do protraction and retraction in this position first, and then I'm going to show you an alternative position that I like to use, because when you're weight bearing on your arms to do protraction and retraction, you get a lot more feedback, which helps you to feel the movement better. We'll start in this position and you can choose which you prefer. So reach your arms up to the ceiling again. Your hands are facing each other, and you're going to imagine you're holding onto a box. Okay, the reason I say that is because a box doesn't change size when you lift it away and bring it towards you, so that's going to help you to keep your hands the same distance apart so that they don't open up and come together. Remember, protraction and retraction is the movement of your shoulder blades away from your spine and towards your spine. So you're going to breathe in as you push that imaginary box away from you, and you're going to breathe out as you pull it down towards you, feeling your shoulder blades gliding on your back. You'll feel them rubbing on the mat as you do this. Push away and bring it towards you. Breathing in as you push away, out as you bring it towards you. In as you push away, out as you bring it towards you. Last one, in and out as you bring it towards you, and then bring your arms down to rest at your sides. The alternative is to do this on all fours like we do for cat stretch. So we're going to get into a position of that neutral spine and pelvis with your hands directly below your shoulders again and your knees directly below your hips. Your back is flat to start with. So for protraction and retraction in this position, you're going to be taking weight through your arms. Make sure that your upper traps, so these muscles at the top of your shoulders and your neck here, are switched off. So you shouldn't be like this. Pull your shoulders away from your ears. Then you're going to gently lower yourself down towards the mat. It's a very small movement. Don't try and go too low. Okay, so your chest just comes down towards the mat. Your elbows stay straight. Don't bend your elbows. It's not a push-up. Okay, so lower yourself to the mat and then push yourself away from the mat. Again, don't push too far and round your spine, okay? We're not doing the cat stretch anymore, we're just doing the shoulder blades. So you're gonna breathe in as you lower down towards the mat and out as you push away. Very small movement, in as you lower down and out as you push away. As I explained earlier, don't over retract and drop into your shoulders when you do this, okay? This is too far. You should feel a bit of a block at the end when you get to the end of your shoulder blade range. That's where you stop and then push away. So breathing in as you lower, out as you push away. 2 more, in as you lower, out as you push away. And last one, in as you lower, out as you push away. Also, just one more thing, be aware that you are not dropping your head when you do this. Your head just stays with your body as you move up and down. You don't drop it down on its own. Okay, and that's your scapular mobilizations. The final exercise for the warm-up is the head nod. And this relates to your head and neck position, which is extremely important in Pilates. As I've mentioned before, we do flexion and extension exercises in Pilates. Your flexion is when you bend forward, your extension is when you bend backwards. Now, your head is heavy and it's held up by your neck, which is significantly smaller than your head. You also have core muscles within your neck, and these we use to stabilize your neck, this vertebra within your neck, so that you don't injure any of your nerves or discs or hurt yourself while you're doing these exercises. So your head and neck position is really important. I'm going to show you what a head nod is. A head nod we use for flexion exercises, and a reverse head nod we use for extension exercises. So it's just the reverse. Okay, so you're going to lie on your back again into a neutral position. And if you use a head pad or anything underneath your head to be in a more neutral, comfortable position when you're on your back, you can place that underneath now. Okay, for a head nod, it's a very, very small movement, and it's an activation of the core muscles in your neck, as well as a positioning of the head for a flexion exercise. Okay, I'm going to show you a flexion exercise just so you can see why we're doing this. A basic flexion exercise is called ab prep. Okay, now if I were to do ab prep, which is this exercise where you're coming up into this position, and I didn't prepare my neck, I could potentially either leave my head behind, which is going to put a lot of strain in my neck, or I could pull myself forward with my head, and that's also going to strain my neck. So we don't want either of those things to happen. So we do a head nod. For a head nod, you're going to be looking up at the ceiling to start with. This is your neutral neck position. And you're going to take your gaze, so what you're looking at, all the way along the roof and down the wall until you can see your knees, okay? And your head will have done a very small nod when you do that, almost like making a double chin, a lot of people say. So you're looking at your knees, that's your head nod, that's all it is, it's very small. And then you're going to release back up to the ceiling, back to neutral. Now your breath pattern for a head nod, because we do it in preparation for an exercise, you're going to breathe in as you nod and out as you release. In as you nod and out as you release. And I'll just briefly show you how that goes in with the exercise. You're going to breathe in, head nod, and then you're going to go into your flexion exercise. And the curve of my neck is following the curve of my spine. I'm not straining my neck at all. I feel very comfortable here. And then when I come back down, I finish in neutral. And that's a head nod that we do at the end of a warm-up, okay? Just to show you a reverse head nod that we will use in our extension exercises, and I'll show you how it's used in an extension exercise. Again, your basic extension exercise is breaststroke prep, where I'm extending my thoracic spine. Your reverse head nod looks like this. It's a very small movement, so that when I extend my back, my neck follows the curve of my spine. I've not left my head behind, and I'm not overextending my neck. So for a reverse head nod, your start position is with your nose down on the mat. It's quite uncomfortable, but you're not going to be there very long. But this is your neutral position. You're going to breathe in as you do your reverse head nod, and imagine that there is a pen on the mat in front of your nose, and you're rolling that pen away with your nose. As soon as your nose leaves the mat, you stop. And that's all it is. It's a very, very small movement. It shouldn't be any further than that. Then you hold your head there when you go into your extension exercise, when we get to that in future, and then come back down to neutral. So reverse head nod and then extend. And again, that's related to your head and neck position. And that is your warm-up done. I hope that was okay. I hope that was helpful, helped you understand Pilates and the basic concepts of Pilates a bit better, as well as learning a little bit more about your body. Don't forget to subscribe to The Honest Poppy if you'd like to learn more about Pilates and to start the beginner's classes. See you soon.